Hello and welcome. Welcome to the storm and the rain. There's been an extraordinary amount of rain this last week or so. So that's affecting the internet a little bit. I hope you've been able to join me with the live streams, but I think the internet's working then in the morning, but in the afternoon it's a bit when I upload these videos, it seems to take a very long time, and then it sometimes goes completely wrong. But I'm sure this matter will resolve itself as and when the rain eventually passes and we enter the cold season. We're in the tail end of the rainy season, but I think that in this part of the world, southern Western Sri Lanka, is later than in other places. And in the Buddha's time in northeast India, the other extreme, it fell nicely the monsoon time between full moon of July and full moon of October. That having passed, we move on to this towards the cold season, winter here. But when I arrived this time last year, it was similarly like this through to December, I think, if I remember rightly. So arms round Pindapat this morning was quite a wet affair, as I'm sure you can imagine, even with my umbrella. I do have to walk along a busy piece of road for one stretch, and I'm now fortunately aware and very careful that if a bus is coming or a big vehicle, even a tuk-tuk sometimes, I have to make sure I'm well out of the way, because the water from the road gets whooshed right up, and that the umbrella doesn't protect you from. But nevertheless, still I'm a little bit too wet. My robe is still a little bit too wet for me to, it's best hanging where it's hanging at the moment. We'll get on with these comments and questions. There's a bit of a few building up, so I should try and catch up. Being aware of mindfulness, my husband's mind is a bag of cats. Oh, right. And he is an introvert. Is his control higher than mine when he says nothing, or when he cannot control himself and I get it all at once? I, his partner, say nothing to avoid hurting his feelings. How do I avoid this contradiction when he is in a flow state? Please advise. Well, I think you seem to be recognizing yourself that already you cannot control somebody else's mind any more than they can control it yourself, or any more than you can really control your own mind. And this practice is all about that, learning to train, not control, but train our own minds to think clearly, see clearly, and be able to develop some levels of calm, peace and tranquility. We refer to as samatha through the practice of focused meditation, samadhi. Now, although we can certainly perfect that in ourselves and develop these qualities of a less cluttered, less disorganized mind state, we cannot, other than by setting an example, do that for others. We can certainly show compassion, treat people with kindness, and by way of example, show them how they can keep sila, keep moral virtue, the precepts, how they can practice meditation, or point them in the right direction of useful information, and help them by that means develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states. We must try and avoid spending too much time being concerned about other people's progress on the path or development without losing compassion for their perhaps lack of progress on the path and development, but with wise attention, just identifying where we may be able to help out. You quite clearly are already noticing that there are times when your partner keeps everything to himself, and it possibly seems to you, as it reads to me, that they may be, in a way, bottling things up, and then it all comes out at once. When it all comes out at once, this is the time to sit and just listen. And this is the greatest gift and kindness, way of service you can benefit your partner. Just to be there, to listen as best you can. Even if your mind wanders off, you may lose the focus of attention because the subject matter may be jumping, as the bagging of cats might have a tendency to do. When opened, everything jumps out at once. All of the cats jump out at once. It may be difficult for you to follow it all, understandably. But that will not matter, because your compassion is that of just being there to listen. And maybe when salient points arise that you identify as points that you can help with, make a mental note. Don't interrupt the flow and try and address a point, but maybe make a mental note of that point. And if it sticks with you, when your partner has finished speaking, then you can come back to point by point, singularly addressing each issue one by one. If you don't remember them all, it doesn't matter, because there will be another occasion. And by this practice, very slowly, your partner will come to realize that you are a very good place to vent, let's say, a good receptacle for these escaping cats, in order to get everything off his chest. Now eventually, with time, and with your kindness, compassion and patience, and indeed equanimity, what you're developing here is your own 4 Brahma Viharas. Those of loving compassion, joy, or loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha. These we call the 4 Brahma Viharas, meaning abode or place of dwelling of the highest level of achieved mental state, almost godlike, heavenly realms, if you like, within oneself, being that they are the qualities that we can abide in to give us that peace and tranquility, and certainly boost our progress on the path. By sharing those qualities you have developed within your own practice, and by further developing the quality of khanti, which is patience and endurance, by offering compassion through a listening ear to all of that escaping cats scenario, you are not only developing your own qualities, you are demonstrating to someone whom is not perhaps practicing, can't quite remember, or I'm not quite clear whether your partner rather is a practicing Buddhist or not. It doesn't matter. By way of your example, you are showing that there needs to be, or there needn't be, too much cause to bottle things up. And slowly but surely your partner will see the nature of your development and develop those qualities within themselves, I would like to think. Excuse me One moment. Sorry about the interruption there, but I have a leak. There we go. Which was okay, but it was starting to run this way. So if you're steaming up, I hope you can hear me okay with the rain. I've waited until the rain's calmed right down, but I can still hear a bit of thunder in the background. Bhante, I am trying to follow the Dharma and practice the Eightfold Path. However, one of the defilements, sensual desire, more specifically food, it's really holding me back. I feel that all the other defilements I can mitigate quite easily. However, with food, I lose all composure. What is your advice? I might need the umbrella in here in a minute. No, my advice. So, following the Noble Eightfold Path, that's wonderful, good. We have 5 hindrances: sensual desire, yes, aversion, laziness, restlessness and worry, and doubt. And sensual desire is certainly one of the more difficult. There are the 5 hindrances, obstacles. We refer to them in meditation, but can be applied to all areas of our activities in life. Our success is largely dependent on overcoming or understanding and being able to identify these obstacles and hindrances, not only in meditation but in our lives. The best place to identify them is within our time sitting in meditation, formally. They become more obvious. And as you notice, food is the one that's becoming more obvious. So you possibly have a tendency ordinarily to snack rather than sticking to meals at mealtime. So this would be the first discipline to develop. The hindrance of sensual desire I'm dealing with here is can be more overwhelming and more all-encompassing of many areas. So for instance, when you lose this craving for food through your meditation, it might well be immediately replaced by another. So be warned, it's sensual desire. But by dealing with one, and an obvious one such as this, a common one, food, you will learn the way forward and discipline to, as another cause for sensual desire arises, deal with it in the same manner. So with regards to food, it is a case of sticking to disciplined meal times. If you're keeping the 8 precepts, or monastics are not eating in the afternoon, this soon becomes second nature. The whole idea of eating and food is dealt with in the morning, and with time, with practice, again, gradually, one loses any interest or thoughts of food in the afternoon anyway. If you have a particularly active lifestyle, even still as a monastic, as some do, there may be some physical rather than psychological hunger, actual hunger. But we do have some medicines, some tonics that can be taken in the afternoon in such cases. A sweet, sugary drink, something like that. Hot tea, black tea with sugar is allowable, can settle the tummy. If you have a particularly aggravating condition in your tummy, a spoonful of honey, a spoonful of butter, or a spoonful of sugar is a solution, and that is allowed for that. But if you're snacking, firstly, cut out the snacking between meals and stick to your breakfast, lunch and dinner. And you will eventually become accustomed to eating enough at those meal times to allay any hunger in between. Ensure you're eating a good, healthy diet. and not such that it's just a lot of sugar that satisfy immediate craving, and then after the initial burst induces more craving for more sweetness. And the same, I think, can be said for salty kinds of snacky foods. So eat sensible food. You can surely understand that better than I can. I have to eat just what I'm offered, and it's a good part of the time far from the ideal diet. But even so, I eat enough to allay hunger for the next 24 hours. And it doesn't come up as part of or a hindrance in my meditation on any occasions nowadays, because my body has acclimatized to it and my mind has acclimatized to it, as will yours. But start by cutting out the snacks if you're snacking in between meals. Once that is, or if you've already done that, ensure you're getting the right nutritional value out of each meal: breakfast, lunch, evening meal, dinner, supper, whatever you call it. And then you sit and you meditate. Now, if still you're having thoughts of food, it could be that your body is craving for a good reason. So do address that. Understand, look at your diet closely. What is it your body really is crying out for? But if it is just psychological, wanting to put something in your mouth or go to the fridge because you're bored of meditation, then you can use this and understand this. Think of what it is you want to eat, and then think of the digestive process of putting that food into your mouth, how it will taste, and what it will cause you to feel, how you will feel about tasting that food. At first, once you get it, you put it in your mouth. Oh yes, that's really hit the spot, that's wonderful. But it won't be very long if you imagine just continually putting that item of food in your mouth, endlessly, endlessly, endlessly. How soon would it be that you became very bored of that item of food? It wouldn't be long at all, would it? You can imagine that. You can imagine these are called asubha practices, looking at the unattractive or unbeautiful nature of things. You can take the idea of some beautiful piece of food that you're wanting to eat. Maybe it's some bananas or some mangoes, or maybe it's a slice of pizza or a currant bun. And imagine when you put this into your mouth, and you can be doing this when this obstacle arises in your meditation, chewing it up for a little while, and then taking it out of your mouth, spitting it out onto your plate or into your dish. And then would you want to put that food now then back into your mouth? Now, after all, it's not been anywhere unpleasant. It's only been in your mouth and on your plate. So what's wrong with picking that piece of food up again and putting it back in your mouth and continuing to enjoy it? It's the last thing you'd want to do, isn't it? Now, if you bring into your mind this idea, this vision, you will soon see the unattractive nature of such snacks. Now, this is for just allaying this desire of eating to alleviate boredom. If you're hungry, it's a different matter. Just make sure you eat well. But also eat and then finish eating, and perhaps time your meditation sometime after you've eaten. Don't meditate either too soon after you've eaten. Don't eat a load of food and then meditate thinking that will help. That will just make you tired. That will bring about the third hindrance: laziness, lethargy, tiredness, and you'll just be dozing off. So it's a fine balance. It's meditating or timing your meals around your meditation so that the meditation is somewhere in between. So don't wait until you're really hungry. This will provoke wakefulness and help to alleviate the third hindrance of tiredness, but it may, with your tendency, provoke sensual desire for food a little more because you are hungry. So you don't want to be hungry, you don't want to be full. Just right. This whole practice is like the story of the three bears. The hard chair, the medium chair, the soft chair, the hard bed, medium bed, soft bed, the hot porridge, warm porridge, cold porridge scenario. If you know that fairy story, that fable, it's a very good illustration where Goldilocks is looking for something that's just right. And it is just that, something that's just right. This is the practice. What happened to your right foot? May you be well and happy. Thank you. Nothing. These questions, comments might be a little old because, yes, I did have a plaster on one of my feet, a couple of my feet during the morning chanting sessions, because walking around in this rain all the time, your feet get soft again. They soften up. They get quite walking 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 kilometers every day on Pindapata on stony ground. Your feet get very tough. But when you're walking around on the floor in here is wet, the ground outside is wet, in water most of the day, your feet soften up, so they're easily cut, damaged, get very sore. So I probably had a plaster on for that reason. They're okay today, but by tomorrow, unless I keep them relatively dry this afternoon, which I can do when I'm meditating like this, sitting, because both my feet are nicely tucked into a warm place in the dry. But thank you for asking. Someone's asking me about some chanting thing that I don't understand, so that's from some other tradition, so I'll just skip through that. What is the noise that we hear when you speak? Me. Some kind of machine. Oh, for the cat to exercise? No, the cat doesn't have any kind of machine. There are some unusual sounds I hear from time to time. I couldn't quite identify what they are, I'm afraid. There's nothing much mechanical in here. I have a little electric fan, which I just, when I got up to get this cloth turned off, because it's already quite cool with the rain outside. The cat doesn't have anything to play with of that nature, no. But maybe they use the building not too far from here from me to prepare certain food dishes and things like that. So they may be grinding with a pestle and mortar or a machine, even a hand-driven machine, grinding up coconuts or chilies or something like that. This is quite a common practice here. Okay, I've heard we can start the Eightfold Path in any order. I've also heard that torpor is removed in first jhana. If so, would it be wise to strive towards arahantship by abstaining? I think you mean attaining, so autocorrect thing there. Attaining first jhana firstly, move on to sotapanna, and then continue the path towards liberation. Also, what places and settings are ideal for reaching the deepest levels of absorption? Complete solitude and quietude? Question mark. So it's rather a lot there and a little mixed up. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a holistic practice. It's not, apart from in reference to Sama Samadhi, right Samadhi, it is not in reference to the stages of jhana or the stages of enlightenment. It is simply what we practice. Sila, moral virtue, meditation and development of wisdom. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Establishing right view, right intention, right speech, right actions, effort, right actions, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. You need to practice it all. We don't do it one step at a time. It's also circular. It's not that you have to develop right view before you can develop right intention, because you in fact have to have the right intention to develop wisdom. That establishes right view. So, no, that is practiced holistically, all of it at once. All we have to do to practice all of it at once is keep 5 precepts. No killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or taking of intoxicants. Then you will be able to meditate. So you practice formal sitting meditation. Now then you can develop samadhi. You don't just intentionally say, right, I want to skip this, skip that, and I'm going to get absorbed into the first jhana by going to, as you say at the end, a secluded place, free from disturbance. Wherever you go, whatever your circumstances, whatever you're surrounded by, even in sensory deprivation, you cannot get away from the 5 hindrances. You mention torpor, sloth and torpor, referring to that third hindrance there of laziness, I call it, just tiredness. Well, I've just spoken a little bit about that, so that's a lot to do with your dietary requirements, when you eat, and meditation. And this is how we ascertain sufficient drive and energy for our practice. And a lot of that drive and energy for our practice, and therefore the way to extinguish that third hindrance of laziness or torpor, sloth and torpor, tiredness, is by achievement of good, healthy and enjoyable mind states from our meditation that will build within us naturally states of awakenedness. After all, this is the goal of our practice, to become awakened, to see clearly. And you sit and you practice meditation in order that you will become deeply absorbed eventually, and you have no control over this other than the right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path, the determination to sit and practice and maintain your focus, your object of your focus of attention and conscious awareness on one meditation object for a length of time, until you become absorbed, deeply absorbed into that meditation object. It will eventually become subtle, and you will be secluded from all of those 5 hindrances, not just the third, all of the 5 hindrances. And you will eventually be secluded from feelings of a physical nature, and eventually and ultimately even thinking, thoughts, mental proliferation. This you should just not try and target as steps. It isn't like that. The Noble Eightfold Path is a holistic approach and a practice. Sitting in meditation is just sitting and meditating and enjoying the journey, enjoying the ride. It isn't an A to B strict path, strict journey until we attain to Sotapanna, at which stage you will be able, through your practice, which will only continue, having attained to Sotapanna, you'll have no other reason for it to be interrupted, to eventually arahantship, full enlightenment. But you have no more control over this happening in terms of its time scale than any other event, including your aging, sickness and death, which is inevitable through your life, but you can't determine how it will happen, when it will be. But what you can determine is the causes and conditions you put in place. As with aging, sickness and death, you will age and you will die, but by living a healthy lifestyle you will become less likely to become sick and less likely to die young or early, but only less likely. And likewise with following the Noble Eightfold Path, you will become more likely to attain to deep levels of absorbed meditation. Yes, of course, a good, sensible place to practice is within peaceful, secluded environments without too much distraction. But don't become too reliant on external conditions for your practice. It is very important to understand and know that our practice is ultimately something we can do anywhere. So I hope I've answered most of those points you mentioned there. Are you using an Eastern calendar system to track your devotee year, or a mixture of both East and West? It sounds like you're using the Julian solar calendar superimposed with some Eastern lunar system in Pali. Well, really, to be honest, I don't use any calendar because it doesn't matter what day it is to me. But we use the lunar calendar as Buddhist monks because we have certain significant practices on the new moon and full moon, being that that's our Buddhist Sabbath, our Buddhist holy day. So that's the real calendar I use. But for instance, if I have to go somewhere, be somewhere on a particular date, that would be normally determined by someone else's use of an ordinary Western calendar. So for instance, I have to go somewhere on the 27th and come back on the 28th of this month. Now, I don't need to write that in a calendar or use a calendar because that's the only thing I have to do in the foreseeable future. I have to go in the morning and come back the following day, following morning. So I've passed that information on to the person who will be assisting me with those brief travels. And I will, over the course of the next few days, check when it's sort of Friday, Saturday coming up, and be aware that Sunday is the 28th and I have to go and come back on Monday, or the 27th, I have to go somewhere and come back on Monday the 28th. But that's my only event until sometime next year in 2026. So is it, if it is indeed, I think it's 2026. No, 2025. See, I don't even know what year it is. We're 24 now, so yeah, next year, calendar year. But of course, we have to fall in, as there is an example, into some areas that are convention. So when I don't have many appointments or any appointments or anything occurring other than knowing that when it's the full moon and the new moon, then I don't really need to even think about or worry about such things, because each and every day is pretty much the same. I know it's when the full moon here because they have it as a national holiday and they put flags up everywhere the night before, the day before. But I look at my little moon calendar thing on the phone, which gives me the precise dates, and I have a little Buddhist calendar, a photograph of a Buddhist calendar, which shows me those. Is it true meditation for more than 30 minutes causes sleep issues? No. It will certainly, practicing meditation, the way I talk about meditation here on this channel, and as is described by the Buddhist teachings, Buddhist meditation will certainly help you towards having a better quality, restful, more restorative sleep. I hope you can hear me okay. It's getting very rainy now. So I might have to skip that one. It's rather needs me to go through it and highlight the question. Sometimes if it's a lot of writing, because I have to take a screenshot and it goes to say 3 or 4 screenshots, I have to literally try and highlight the questions in there. So it means they're going to have to be skipped until I can answer something I can see more readily. How come you changed your countries so many times during your journey? Oh, I spoke about that in the last talk. Visas run out usually, so you have to go even for a short time and then return. With respect, oh, this means I'm going to be told off, doesn't it? Dear Bhante, with respect, that means yes, always you're going to be told off. Rajneesh Osho is a very dangerous person to talk about. I'm reading someone's comment here. There are people who so on and so on and so on and so on. So I've made some reference to Osho, as we know him in the West, Rajneesh, Bhagawan, various names, pseudonyms, and his teachings in the past in a very old video. I'm not going to talk about any controversy surrounding that, and as you have mentioned quite a few things there, none of those things I have met and spoken to people whom have first-hand experience of the organisation. None of those matters that you have spoken of there, they've never mentioned them. What I've referred to is he often uses in his speeches, his talks, references to Buddhist teachings, which he makes very clear are references to Buddhist teachings. And in that respect, I have no qualms about... I've had many in India, I've had many lay followers, supporters, Buddhist practitioners that I have had as part of my wherever I've been staying. They're the people who come to visit me in the temple, whom are also people who go to whatever you call them, the Osho centres for meditation. And there's been no real contradiction in their practice as compared to what I talk about. So no, I accept your comment there, each to their own. But I don't think to mention someone like, I don't know what context I mentioned it in particularly, but I don't think to mention Osho is dangerous. And the organisation you're referring to is long gone. It's the same organisation, but it's the modern new generation. So yeah, whatever. I don't teach or promote anything other than the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha anyway. So maybe I made some reference. It's out of context, I'm afraid. Right. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, very long. Three pages in which I found a couple of little questions. So I'm going to skip that and come back to it tomorrow when I've had a chance to look at it again. What a kind way of telling someone... So what is a kind way of telling someone that you care for, that they are distracting you from your meditation and wisdom and encouraging you towards a path that will compound your suffering and their own? So if someone's literally you're sitting and meditating and they're coming and distracting you, as can happen, it even happens here, then you need to develop patience with that. It won't happen too often. You'll find a routine that you can practice meditation when you won't be disturbed and see what this person requires. But like I think I've probably said many times before, we're not in the business of changing, and I have just now in this talk, changing other people's minds, but a setting of an example. So the kindest, the most compassionate way to not tell someone they're distracting you from your meditation, and you say, and wisdom, they cannot distract you from your wisdom. It's for you to develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states, for you to develop your own wisdom through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. This isn't something anyone can distract you from. If you don't have the discipline, when you're invited, for instance, to go and take part in an activity which is contrary to the Noble Eightfold Path, then this isn't that person. This is you not having the discipline to say, no thank you, I would rather not join you on this occasion, which you can quite easily do. You can say, I appreciate you asking me to accompany you, but on this occasion I would like to just give it a pass, please. Take a rain check, whatever. Just say you're not interested in doing that sort of thing anymore. Now, they may think at first that's a bit odd, but eventually they will come to see that it is because you are practicing well and you are benefiting from that practice. As you develop these qualities of loving kindness, compassion, joy and equanimity, they'll recognize that in you and they'll want to be like you. And they'll say, well, whatever I'm doing isn't conducive to a Buddhist practice, and maybe I can look at this Buddhist practitioner and see them as an example and have a little bit of that happiness that they seem to have. So set an example. That's the way. Now, if what they're doing is contributing to their own suffering, then they will see that. But you can demonstrate it by your own actions of body, speech and mind far better and more kindly than by telling them. Because when you tend to tell people, don't do that, it'll do you harm, it'll cause you suffering, they're going to sort of think, well, you know, I don't agree, I'm really enjoying this, and they might even want to do it more. If you just leave them to it, they're going to find that out as you did for themselves, because this is all what the Buddha taught us, to see it for ourselves, experience it for ourselves, find out for ourselves through experience, through the practice. And I think on that note, I should leave it there. I hope you've been able to hear me okay today. I was hoping the rain or thinking the rain might stop when I sat down to speak, but it doesn't look like it's going to today. So at least I've had the opportunity to cover and look at some of your comments and questions. I hope it's useful. If it is, please use it and share. And if it's not, just let it go. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.